Yes, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon.
All right. Wanted to welcome everyone here. I see we do have quorum. We have a couple of people who may be signing on late. We have um, Judge Holmes, who's working on another assignment for us. Not sure if they'll be done in time, but if they do, she will be joining us. Dr. Osgood has a family emergency that is going on. We'll just ask that we keep Dr. Osgood and her family. She's having a crisis with her dad in our prayers. Mr. Weeks says he will be signing on late as well, but he will definitely be on. And I believe that's who I've heard from thus far. And with that, let us begin with our self-introductions for the members of the board.
Yes.
Colonel David Holmes, Broward County Sheriff's Office, Executive Director for Department of Law Enforcement.
Michael Bell, Community-Based Connection, Community Partner.
Good afternoon, Valerie Wanza, Broward County Public Schools, Superintendent Designate.
Good afternoon, Elder Guys, Faith Community.
Travis Lagon, Department of Juvenile Justice Camp Coordinator.
David Watkins, Broward County Public Schools, Community.
I see Mr. Walters on here. Roosevelt, is your audio working?
What about now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Thank you. Roosevelt Walters, Community.
Thank you. Judge?
Good afternoon, Judge Carlos Rabeau. I'm in the Juvenile Delinquency Division here on behalf of the judiciary.
Thank you, sir.
Cassandra Evans, Florida Department of Juvenile Justice.
Gloria Moschella on behalf of the State Attorney's Office.
Johnny Sanders.
Got too many devices on, Johnny Sanders. Okay. Thank you.
Major Victor London, Fort Lauderdale Police Department, Chief Executive Officer.
Thank you. And I see Dr. Hickman on here. For those who don't know you, introduce yourself, please.
Not a problem. Antoine Hickman, Broward County Public Schools, visitor, panelist, something.
Thank you. We appreciate you.
Thank
you. Okay. All right. Is there anyone else we're missing? Let me just double check on the other side real quick. Okay. Don't see them yet. All right. So we want to be reminded of our norms. Cell phones placed on silent or vibrate. Raise your hand if you wish to speak. Mr. Walters, that might be a little tough for you, so you will let us know. We'll put you in the queue. Maximum of 3 minutes per person. Respect all others' opinions and viewpoints, and address other board members respectfully. We have it's not a long agenda today, but we have some unfinished business that we need to certainly take care of. Okay, somebody's out of power. Okay. Dr. Wanza. Okay, so she's going to be in and out. All right. So we've all seen the news. We've all seen the numerous school-based arrests for threats and all kinds of other things, weapons in school. So I wanted the district to come on, and I did. Dr. Osgood, prior to her family emergency, was going to discuss this. I think that certainly Mr. Watkins and Dr. Hickman. I know Dr. Wanza is having a power issue. And so I wanted the district to talk about as much as you can this school-based arrest for, I know we've had some issues with some weapons at school. We've had some issues with, numerous threats. And I know that I heard at one of the meetings, and I saw in the comments in the chat from last month that there were a number of programs and different strategies the district is attempting to use to assist with that, to include the shareholders and families. So if you all can talk to us about number one, the arrest that you've seen, what is the increase? I believe it is. I was told it is, but you can tell us that. And then some of the things that you're doing to try and curb and address these issues. So any one of you who can and will.
Madam Chair, if you'd allow me to speak to, I want to speak to what we are doing to address the behaviors, or doing to address the threats, and doing to address.
Yes, sir. But let's talk about what we're talking about. The threats. Then what is it you're seeing, and then we'll address how we're working on it, please.
All right. Well, overall, I must say that overall, there's been this concern about increased behavior and discipline in the district since we returned to school. What I'll share, we pulled the data from the past 5 years and looked at the same amount of time and looked at the same number of instances. And in actuality, the numbers are down for data from August to November for the past 5 years. I'll just use year before last, before we closed, we had like 33,000 incidents during this time, and right now we have about 22,000. Now, to get to what your question was about threats, I'm going to share with you that pretty much, I want to just go through some of the data. Acts against persons is down, issues with attendance is down, bus behavior. We are seeing an increase in substance abuse, and we are seeing an increase. It's small, but it is definitely an increase in those other behaviors, other criminal behaviors, such as social media threats and posts and things that are causing a disruption in school. So yes, that data is reflecting that over the past 5 years, there is a difference, and there is an uptick in that area. I don't have the data. I wasn't prepared for that to speak to the number of arrests on school. So I will yield to my colleagues on that, but that is the issue that we're seeing.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't necessarily looking for a specific number, but
Okay.
we're seeing it all in the news and what's going on, and so we just wanted to talk a little bit about what the district is seeing, and then what you all have been doing to address the issue. So that's what I needed. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Right ahead.
So now to address the issue, some of the things, let's just start with, I think the last time we spoke, we had just started an initiative in the district called School Pride and Peace. It was a School Pride and Peace Week kickoff, in which we wanted our schools to stop and think about what was going on in terms of what we were hearing and seeing in social media and what we were seeing in our schools. Not just social media, we're seeing some things in our schools. We wanted just to stop and say, hey, let's go back to grassroots. How do we really get students? What did we do in the past when we had these issues? We had students to be prideful and show that they were concerned about their community, about their school, and we actually had the students lead the charge. We talked to our students, and we actually wanted to take over the internet, or break it, as the youngsters say now, by utilizing our school leaders, our student leaders, to post positive things instead of negative. And so we saw across the district pep rallies and bands, and students using time for social emotional learning to provide, create bracelets and things on campus, to beautification projects, to just a number of activities in schools to include their own social media and marketing of how they should be treating one another and how to respect one another and the effect of violence and in the school community. We have been working with, and this is where I'll ask Mr. Watkins to assist. We've been working with our community, our law enforcement to reignite the Think Before You Post slogan, and kicked off the Think Before You Post campaign, as well as It's No Joke campaign. We've also used, year before we closed down the school, we had some information and a video that was shared by Judge Williams in reference to the impact of threats and what the consequences are for that. We're communicating that information to our schools and to our parents and to our families. What we most recently realized that a lot of things that we're doing is educating our adults in our community. And so as recent as this week, in working with our Chief Communications Officer, we are pulling together focus groups of students to say, okay, this is what the adults have come up with. We've come up with School Pride and Peace. We've come up with It's No Joke. We've come up with hashtag Think Before You Post. We are also looking to expand our Choose Peace, Stop Violence initiative that we have in like 17 schools, to expand that to all of our schools, utilizing the funds from, you heard funds about the American Recovery Act, and American Recovery funds, funding for that. So using those funds to expand Choose Peace, Stop Violence, which is a curriculum. It provides resources. It provides incentive for staff for staff to lead the initiative, and it provides incentives for students. So I rambled, but if I narrowed it down to 5 things: Think Before You Post, It's No Joke, working with our schools to School Pride and Peace Week, Choose Peace, Stop Violence, and just getting the message across the school district, utilizing our kids to change the message and making sure that we get out positive messages across the district. Mr. Watkins, if I misspoke or if there's anything you'd like to add to that, I would appreciate it, sir.
Sure. I think you hit many of the major talking points, but I'll just add that, we've had for a number of years a curriculum around Think Before You Post. And we relaunched that curriculum to illuminate the need for all the schools to have access to it, where to find it on our website. And then we are working with our staff to push into our schools and measure the impact. As Dr. Hickman shared, we've had standing meetings on each Friday, and it includes many members of CAB. So, Colonel Holmes, Mr. London from Fort Lauderdale, Gloria from the State Attorney's Office, a number of Ms. Evans from DJJ, and a lot of other stakeholders from NOBLE, for our National Organization of Black Law Enforcement, is a part of it. Our Miami Dolphins, our school district investigative unit, a lot of different agencies have been a part of this conversation. So not only are we looking to, how do we message this in a way that it gets to our students, we're also looking at the data and then looking at how we can then re-strategize to, target and push into communities where we're seeing the highest concentrations of that uptick, and really do some very intentional work. Additionally, Dr. Hickman shared some of the components that we have, such as the Think Before You Post and the It's No Joke with the videos and the social media. And that social media has reached almost 200,000 viewers. And it actually went viral. But of course, as Dr. Hickman shared, it went viral to our adults, our parents and grandparents and community stakeholders, but it really wasn't, reaching the students, which was our intended target. And that's where he shared, going back a little bit, to pulling some of our student leaders, our student governments, our GSAs, our Mentoring Tomorrow's Leaders and 5,000 Role Models, and other mentoring groups and other school stakeholders to help, come up with that messaging. On the school district website, we have resources and tools that we push out through what we call a BCPS alert, where we send out a message to the school community. We've also done some parent links to go out to speak to this work, and it's found on our website. So if you go onto our website is School Climate and Discipline website, and then there's a tab that's around violence prevention, and within it you'll see the internet safety component. And so there's a parent link with a long list of resources, a toolkit of things that parents can do and to work with the students to help, educate themselves around the lingo, language, and how to prevent that, as well as student resources as well on that same platform. But things that I want to be mindful of as we look at the data, and I'm sure Chief Evans can speak better than we can, as we always try to match our data and what it looks like. I try to be careful about two things: pointing to the negative end of the spectrum as far as illuminating the incidents, which are a concern, but also not acknowledging the overwhelming majority of children that are following the rules, that are getting it right, that are reporting when they see these things coming across their social media. So sometimes the increase in the reporting of incidents on social media is due to the education that when their peers see, hey, someone posting something that's threatening, they're reporting it. But part of the education is still, how do we report this information in such a way that we help the intended person or the perpetrator of that, so that it doesn't ultimately end up in lifelong consequences. But we want to not go back to the no snitching culture that was happening in the early 2000s and into the mid 2000s, where folks would not report and we didn't know until something big or bad happened. So that's, I think, the beginning steps of what we've done. We've sent out memos, and we continue to have these ongoing conversations every Friday during this time. And the last piece I'll just say is that we've done 2 videos and 2 presentations with the school district, with Pembroke Pines Police. They did a piece, and next week, the Miami Dolphins is going to push out messaging around social media responsibility that we're going to take into the winter break. And then we're going to come back after the break, take a look at our data, take a look at where we are, and then look at some different types of plans, including how we can have our students lead that initiative.
I do have something else through the chair, if you don't mind.
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
I just want to mention, so those are things that those are like district-wide initiatives, but we can't take away the work that's going on in schools. Before, as we started the school year off and plans to look at our focus on our mental health and definitely our social emotional learning, we have to go, let's just go to the core what social emotional learning focuses on. It focuses on self-concept, social concept, self-management, relationship building, and decision-making. And throughout our curriculum that we have, such as Rethink Ed, we provide not only those high-level projects or social media prompts or campaigns, but we also provide more than like 120 lessons in school for those teachers who are struggling with how to teach and reach and address the conversation. And so that information is pushed out. It's available to not only our teachers, but we want to be in an act of transparency. Families can also access Rethink Ed and how to have those conversations. So like Mr. Watkins said, well, I use a number. I gave you a number like 33,000 incidents. Well, that could be definitely a smaller number of students because they could be multiple. But with 277,000 students, right, there's a huge population of kids who are following, who are practicing some of the things that we're teaching. And with those students who are even behaving inappropriately, we're providing them with their guidance on their return. So it's more about, it's a two-way street. There's some discipline, but there's also a lot of information provided to in terms of reform. So thank you.
Are there any any common themes or anything similarities between some of the cases that you're seeing? I think that I was told that some of them are so-called high functioning kids. They may be in the top 10% or 20% of their class, or not any particular one thing. I mean, there was maybe allegations of something, bullying at some point. I mean, is there anything that you all have found that that is common between a large portion or a portion of the students?
So I don't, without having accurately looked at the data, I can't confirm this as being 100% accurate, but what I can share with you is that the preliminary things that we're seeing, the concentrations happen to be in a lot of the Southwest schools in the district, which is one of the reasons why I think Pembroke Pines, they reached out to the district because of the number of things that they were seeing in their area. And then it did sort of was consistent with the different schools in that part of the county, as well as the northwest part of the county. We saw more incidents that were being reported.
What about from law enforcement? What are you guys seeing? And what do you think of the programs that they're trying to do with your agencies?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and other members of the board. From a law enforcement perspective, we've definitely seen an uptick in the number of social media threats as of late. And one of the things that we've been trying to do is make sure that our SROs are working with the schools to make sure they get the words out to these students so they understand the importance of how crossing the line is not a joke, and how serious these threats are, and how serious that we in law enforcement take these threats. I want to say kudos to Judge Williams and Judge Tudor for their PSAs that went out, because that really assisted us from law enforcement perspective to follow up behind them and readdress it to the students. Right now, all of our SROs in our jurisdictions are speaking to groups of students, and we are keeping track to the number of students that we do speak with, and to make sure that we're getting the points across. Just to add to that, one of the things that we've been seeing, aside from the social media threats, there's been a significant spike in auto thefts. I don't know what it is. A lot of these juveniles are not understanding the significance and the repercussions to stealing vehicles. And here at BSO, not only are we finding an increase in auto thefts by juveniles, but we're finding weapons on these juveniles too, which is very, very scary. We're going to continue our part in making sure that we educate the youth, working with the school board, and making sure these youth understand the significance and the cost of crossing that line, and that we're here from a law enforcement perspective to assist and guide them the right way. We're not throwing in the towel. We know it's a battle, it's a long fight, but we're here to assist.
Okay, Major London.
Yeah, I echo the Colonel's perspective. One of the challenges we were having with this is you get the initial post, and then people forward these posts on social media. So it's hard to backtrack to the original folk. So it might appear to be worse than what it is in some instances, but we've been successful with following up as we need to. And as it relates to what the school board is doing for the educational campaign, I think it's being impactful. We'll have to wait and see, but it appears to be effective.
Major, is there a penalty for the student who forwards the post?
For the most part, these threats are traced back to the originators. So it's not like they're posting the post, they're just reposting something that they saw. So there isn't any penalty for those people.
Okay, because I thought I saw something different. So, okay, thank you. Gloria?
I was just going to say that I think we should also remember that a lot of these threats are also, especially like particularly Pembroke Pines, I believe it was Mr. Watkins or Dr. Hickman who mentioned it. A lot of these are coming from charter schools as well. There's a fair share of these threats that are coming from our charter schools. Not that it changes the landscape, but just that I don't know how much the district really controls what's going on in the charter schools. I know that they also, my experience with law enforcement and charter schools is that, some have a good relationship and they report everything, others don't. So I just wanted to point out that not every school involved is just a public school, public district school. And then with regard to the things that the school district is trying to push out, I commend them for that. We don't know how impactful it is yet because a lot of this just started just before Thanksgiving. I think that the long-term goals, I think long-term, some of the curriculum that they're talking about, I think will be helpful in the immediate sense. It's going to take time. I don't think these kids are getting the message how serious nature of what they're doing. We are trying to use great discretion in my division, how I handle them with my team in terms of case-by-case basis, because we do recognize that this looks very serious on a face sheet. And so we try to, we review every one of them with a number of us here in my unit. I don't do this alone. So I think from every angle, we're trying to address this in a way that's careful and keeping in mind that, kids are impulsive. And so not every one of these are meant to be something that's going to blow up. I don't hate to use that word, no pun intended, but just the fact that, again, we're trying to use great discretion. To your question about whether there's any commonality among these, I would say that a lot of what I read in reports, and I have no empirical data, I'm just talking about reading these daily and talking to my ASAs that are handling them with me. These kids are in fear. There's a social emotional deficit from the pandemic. Also, I think all of us were here prior to 2018 with the Douglas shooting and have been here since 2018. I think there's no question that there's been an increase since 2018 that obviously came about from the shooting, that students are just not feeling safe anymore, but the pandemic has compounded that. And so that's why I do believe that the curriculum and the things that Mr. Watkins and Dr. Hickman were speaking to will long-term be helpful. I hope. I hold out hope that students will start to feel safer again, and then that's what they're working on. But that's where I think a lot of this is coming from, which is why we're trying to make sure that we're using great discretion in how our office responds to them as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I think that's a good point with the charter schools, because as soon as anybody sees it on the news, we automatically think that it's our public schools and they haven't done enough and see, I told you so, and that whole thing. So I think that's an excellent point. So and I don't believe that, and I guess Dr. Wanza and Hook Hickman can say how much control, I don't know that you have any over the charter schools. I don't think we have those type of charter schools in Broward County. I know that some other counties do have that type of charter school. I don't believe that we have that. You all can correct me if I'm wrong. You're muted, Doc.
The charter schools do have their own governing boards. They do follow our policies, but as far as we don't provide discipline or anything to them.
And so you would just have and reporting is the same thing, is it not? They just do report or don't, or as far as you all would really know, you'll find out when you find out as to what they're doing in their schools.
That's my understanding. We have to report in, Mr. Watkins.
So yeah, so whatever is the originator of their charter is basically that's the rules that they follow as it is tied to the district. I will share. I'm glad that Gloria shared the charter school piece. I know one charter organization, Pembroke Pines Charter, actually reached out, for additional support from the district. And we do have a charter school office in our district. So, and I think when we look at things like this, we can create opportunities to get in front of the charter school leaders and share the resources, point them to the things that, we can do. And depending on the nature of their charter, it can help influence how we can support them. And so we do want everybody on board in these types of circumstances.
Thank you. John James, we were talking about students, school-based arrests for students with threats of violence and maybe weapons at school or something like that. So we're trying to. We were talking about the different programs that the district is implementing and has implemented, and whether we think it's having or has a potential to have an effect, or is there something we could do differently or in addition to. So I don't know, those kids that came to your office, any thoughts on those children?
Well, I think we have a number of, so we have a number of clients that we represent, a number of the children that are charged with some of the social media threats cases that you're referring to. A few of them are now being diverted. Before we didn't have that as an option a lot here. I think that whatever the schools are doing from a school-based program to kind of curb this type of activity is something that we won't see really the results of for another, I would say probably anywhere between 4 to 6 months, because I think the message has to hit and has to run first. And then we can potentially see the fruits of it from my standpoint, because I got to be honest with you, Madam Chair, there was a time within the last 2 months here, we saw a case regarding a school-based threat once a day. In fact, I did some just analysis here in our office, and by no means do we represent every child, but every case that we could recall or we could remember, and for the kids that we did represent, we did an analysis of it. So we pulled about 27 cases, if I'm not mistaken, from over the last year or so, just looking at and see if we can see any common interest in the cases from where they may originate from, as far as the areas, law enforcement involved, the schools involved, the type of threats involved. And we haven't been able to find a common thread or theme, even in as far as even age. There is no commonality with all this. This is just kids being children and saying the bad thing and trying to do the wrong thing. I think the only thing I can find that I could say that may be in common is that majority of them would always tell you that it was a joke that went wrong. And that has been the common thing. So and I think where the message needs to be definitely from the school board is that this is no joking matter and you should not joke of things of this nature. And I think we can help curb a lot of that from just simply saying that. But this is how we're seeing it from the defense side of it.
Okay. Any questions, comments, Chief Evans? Anything from your side?
What I will say is that all things considered, that I hear from parents as well as probation officer who supervise these cases is trying to differentiate when it's not a joke. Right? Because you do have some children who really have some firearms. This is causing a much more convoluted process. You create chaos, you create all the media stir around a particular situation. Department is then tasked with and offering services, and then whatever follows thereafter through the court process. You have this going on, as well as the current status of young people who have firearms, and to Colonel Holmes' point about the uptick with the grand theft autos and the possession of weapons in the midst of it. You put all of that together and you're creating a different environment for the department staff and just a stance on how do we handle such matters. And so I don't have a perfect answer, but I can tell you that it is cause for concern on behalf of the probation officer, because as they're out moving in the communities and working with the people directly, the people, our clients, there is a overlay of personal safety when you're in a home, right? Most of us on this call and most of the professionals see these young people outside of their home, right? We have to see them in the home, and the assessment of true safety is not upon you until you're at someone's house. And so, Madam Chair, the department certainly supports, and we've been participating with the efforts to curb the threats, the bad jokes, but it is still creating a ripple effect in some other systematic issues. So much more complex than I think just the term uptick, which is what we're using here, but it is a phenomenon that we need to address. And at the end of the day, the kids think it is a joke. So the adults can say that it's not a joke, but they believe it is. They see no consequences. They're not afraid of probation, community control, going to a program. So it is a joke. So, but we have parents who are afraid to take their children to school. So we are struggling in the sense of how we're going to better address this phenomenon. But I thank you for the opportunity to kind of share what the department is experiencing and these upticks. And I do agree with Attorney James that while the numbers may be down, and I think we have to look at it proportionally to the number of students, what was going on, the times were different, but the frequency is much closer together. You're seeing a lot of incidences back to back to back to back. And so that's what makes the data seem as if it's an uptick, because the concentration is really high. And that's what I've looked at on my end, because I get all the reports passing by my desk.
Dr. Wanza, I was at a meeting recently, and it was mentioned that you all were going to at some point start random wanting or something, wanting students. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So I've been to a couple of planning meetings for that. And I do know that there is conversation around sometime in January, because before we do anything, we got to have a policy. So sometime in January, bringing an emergency policy to the board to speak to this, obviously with the understanding that we know we got to do a lot of front loading in the community, because one of the things that I said expressly is, sometimes random isn't random when it always identifies the same people. And so, in fact, I was at a meeting today with our legal and everyone, but there is the intent of sometime in January to actually bring an emergency policy to the board for discussion before we implement anything. But that is being discussed. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
And it's not wanding the person, it's the book bags.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the random of the book bags.
Okay. Colonel Holmes.
Yes, I would like to just add to that briefly. One of the things that has been very helpful for us, I know the school board, along with law enforcement, have been reiterating to the students, if you see something, say something.
Mm-hmm.
We had a situation at one of our schools last month.
Northeast?
Well, we had one at Northeast and Boyd Anderson.
Yes.
Where the student said something. Contacted our school resource officer, and they went into action, responded, and took care of business. And it was one of those situations that the kid felt comfortable with saying something to law enforcement, reached out to the school resource deputy, and it prevented a tragedy. Who knows what could have happened? But I think the work that the school board is doing with trying to get across to the young kids the importance of communicating, because there's so many good kids out there that is bothered by what's going on, and they want to help eliminate these bad issues, these bad incidents. So we got to reiterate to them. I know Mr. Watkins stated that earlier. Just keep encouraging these kids to, if you see something, say something, and you know, hopefully the numbers will go down even more. And I know Attorney James talked about how a lot of these kids see it as a joke, and they do. I know when we interview a lot of these juveniles after the fact, one of the things that they always say instantly is, "Oh, I was just joking." You know, well, it's not a joke. Yeah, I mean, look what happened up in Michigan. It's not a joke. And look what we had here in our own backyard. We don't want to experience that again. So we're going to continue to work with the school board to make sure that these kids understand the importance of and coming to us when they see a threat.
Thank you, Colonel. Any other questions regarding this issue? I don't see Tamika on. Tamika, if you are, raise your digital hand. I don't see you. Did anyone work with the county on the promise issue? Dr. Hickman, did you all work on what's the update on the workaround regarding the promise data? Okay. Ismail.
I'm not familiar with a workaround.
Would you like me to speak?
I would like someone, I'm not familiar with a workaround. We've been reporting as directed.
Madam Chair, I can speak on the details of.
Hang on one second. There is, looks like there's someone from the county that says they're on. Let's see. I don't know which one this is. Can you just put your hand up? Because there are 3 Ismails. So we can see which one it is. All right, it should be coming over any second now. Okay. Tamika?
Yes, good afternoon. My apologies. For some reason, I couldn't get on with my link, so I had to have Ishmael forward me his link.
Okay.
So currently the progress, after our last meeting, we had another meeting with the state attorney, Ms. Evans, and some staff, and we discussed some of the issues we were seeing. But since that time, for the workaround purposes, we've actually received a formal designation from Dr. Cartwright identifying Michael Walker as the contact person to notify once we receive a referral for a youth who is also in promise. So what that workaround allows for us to do is to be able to initiate the civil citation process as required, but it does not alleviate the issue of the youth being placed in JJIS prevention web twice for the same offense. But we do have that workaround, and we'll commence as soon as we receive another youth who is in promise and was referred to civil citation.
So it does not satisfy your double entry data issue?
It won't satisfy that, and I believe that we spoke about that a little bit previously, because the school board is required by statute to enter it, and so are we. So the only thing that workaround does is it allows us to initiate the civil citation process and to comply with our contracts and our policies to enter the youth. But there is still a duplication.
And so is this a concern to DJJ, Chief Evans? I hope the answer is yes.
A concern of?
The duplicated entry.
From a data standpoint, no. I think what's going to allow us to see are those instances, and at this point, the numbers have been still relatively small, when a youth has received 2 similar alternatives from a statistical standpoint. But
from a real life, I should have one entry, and now it looks like I did two things. So I have two entries, but it's really one incident.
Madam Chair, that's not how, it depends on who's looking at the data and what they're interpreting it to say.
That's
So,
my point.
So the point of law enforcement say using the information and seeing it as two opportunities that this youth has used back to back, and being able to determine if they can say that they're for the same incident or the child is really out of control. I certainly, I'm unable to speak on that, because that's a different group of folks who will look at the data. But from a purely statistical standpoint, the numbers are going to be so infinitesimal until I don't anticipate it having any impact on that. But what in the conversation that we had, in two separate conversations, it speaks to using that data to in turn take necessary actions to address other embedded system issues. And so we discussed a lot of other things that lead to similar situations that look like this. A kid could have a civil citation in West Palm Beach and have a promised offense here in Broward County. So
if they legitimately have it, two incidences, that's one thing. If they only have one incident and it's showing, and I'm saying this because the leader to get this data in is the sheriff of Pinellas County, who is the leader of the Douglas Commission, who said we need this data so that we can track these children and so that law enforcement can determine if they're going to make an arrest. And their arrest is going to be based on what they see in the system. That was the reasoning, and that's the real-time problem that we're having here. I understand from the data point that works for you. It does not work for our students when it looks like they've done more things than they actually have. So that's our issue with that.
Understand, and I've had a separate conversation with individual parties as to some potential solutions to that, until such time as the Florida statutes written based off of that desire.
Okay. Tamika, Dr. Wanda, I was watching the video back and I saw a question, I believe it's Dr. Wanda, that says, what determines if a law enforcement actually issues a civil citation? So we haven't covered that in a while, so that's, if you will share that from your space. And then we could talk about the policies that that law enforcement has in their SOPs.
So what I can say from my end, what should be taken into account, obviously I'm not law enforcement and they take other things into account, but strictly looking at eligibility criteria. If the youth if it was a misdemeanor offense, previously it was any misdemeanor. Now we have a circuit plan which dictate which misdemeanors, and it excludes others. So whether or not it falls into that category of an eligible misdemeanor offense, whether or not the youth is currently under the supervision of the Department of Juvenile Justice, and whether or not they've had a felony history. That's what should be taken into account. And the law enforcement, according to the current policies, they're still calling the Juvenile Assessment Center to allow for someone on that end to look into JJIS and make a determination whether or not the youth is eligible. I can't.
Colonel Harms. Okay. Tell us about your agency. I know you worked with the state attorney's office in adopting their formalized civil citation program. And so tell us what in BSO, what determines if what's going to drive that officer or those deputies to give a child who qualifies civil citation?
Well, our policy basically sets out our protocol in which if there's a misdemeanor and they're not under any type of court supervision, that the civil citation should be afforded to that juvenile. However, as just like any other agency, any other entity, you have individuals that make mistakes, make errors, and we are monitoring that to make sure that that doesn't continue to happen. Like I said, in the past 2 years, we've improved tremendously because we have more oversight and we're reinforcing our policies and our protocols to our deputies. And you know, we stated earlier about having even the backups. I know we'll probably get into that a little later with, you know, when a kid is taken down to Jack, having a backup to issue a civil citation if warranted. But our protocols are enforced. However, human nature sometimes takes control, and that's up to our command to make sure that we monitor that and make those corrections. But as Tamika stated, you know, as long as they're not under court supervision and it's a misdemeanor, and you know, I think we stated like last month, several of the missed opportunities that we had involved domestic violence type of cases, which eliminates them from that probability of getting a civil citation. Those are the things that we look at on a consistent basis.
Is there in BSO land, is there anything, any misdemeanor other than domestic violence that would prohibit any other misdemeanor? I know that some other departments have some other things going on.
That's the main one that we're dealing with. Whenever we show up on the missed opportunity list, it's usually domestic violence.
But to your knowledge, your SOP does not prohibit other misdemeanors, to your knowledge, like some of the other ones, the other departments do.
Correct.
Okay. Major London.
Madam Chair, our SOP mirrors the MOU that the state attorney put out. So all those that he listed, we listed them verbatim as eligible for civil citation.
So there's none other than domestic violence that will typically exclude a student from getting, a child from getting a civil citation.
That's correct. Under typical circumstances, there are exceptions to where the officers can deviate if a lieutenant approves it.
What does that mean?
We actually had it happen in October where we had 3 officers injured and battered by students who were brawling. I think you might have saw it on the news.
I did.
Yeah. So because one of the juveniles had to be physically arrested and complained of injuries, he was transported for medical clearance, and he didn't get a juvenile civil citation where others who were involved did.
But that's not that wouldn't be a misdemeanor, would it?
Yeah, they charged them all with misdemeanors. That's the good thing about it. Instead of going with battery, Leo, which they could have,
right.
They went resisting arrest and disrupting the school's function.
Okay. And have you all had an opportunity, that's for Gloria and Tamika, had an opportunity to touch bases with Springs, Plantation, and Lighthouse about their other exceptions?
I actually reached out to Coral Springs, and we have another meeting pending because the designated person for Coral Springs, which was the deputy chief, he's been reassigned. So as soon as I get another meeting date, we'll have that with Coral Springs, but not the other 2 agencies.
Nothing from Plantation and nothing from Lighthouse Point.
We have not met with them again.
Well, we met with Lighthouse Point, didn't we, Tamika?
We met with Plantation as well. I think what she's following up on is those agencies that that express to us that they have an internal
right.
Have
Yes.
an internal limitation that would prevent the issuance of civil citation for certain misdemeanors.
Yeah.
And they had agreed and to reevaluate and see what they came up with.
Right.
Okay, so y'all, if you will follow, let us know. I'm looking forward to that, hearing what they have to say about that.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Dr. Wanza, what is the So the mandate for masking is done.
That is
But
correct.
I've seen, when I was at your school last week, I saw a lot of students still wearing masks and a lot of staff not wearing masks.
'Cause it,
So,
well, it's optional. So
Mhm.
there are some people, regardless, they're gonna wear a mask. And there are some people, thankfully for them, they think they don't need to wear a mask, they're not. So it is completely optional. If children ask us for masks, we do provide it. But we do not require them. We do not discipline them for not wearing one. And we have made it abundantly clear that individuals who elect not to wear face masks, they cannot be discriminated, harassed, or otherwise mistreated for exercising, their option, their right not to wear a mask. But it is totally optional on all facilities, transportation, everything.
well, I was glad to see that the students were still wearing masks, and you all had so many staff members there for your meeting that weren't masked that I double masked. 'Cause I don't know, but Omicron is, so I double masked, and I did hear other school leaders saying that children had come in. Had come in and asked for masks because
Oh, no, yeah, they do, and we certainly give them to them.
Okay.
But we have maintained all of the heightened cleaning and sanitizing protocols. Those still go on. Look at Dr. Hickman. As well as the our increased protocols around the AC filters and all of that stuff. It's just the the masking and now the parents have it's the parent choice. If the child was a close contact and they're asymptomatic, it's the parent's choice as to whether or not they quarantine. We can't mandate that they do.
So will you continue just give out the mask until they're gone and that's it, or will you have a steady supply?
We have a steady supply and we will continue to have.
Okay, thank you.
John James, can I add to that?
Yes.
Doc, or through the
Go
chair,
right
just
ahead.
add our mitigation efforts, right? We can't forget that we are still offering voluntary vaccination. We vaccinated for those kids 5 through 11. Prior to Thanksgiving, we had vaccinated about 7,000. Well, we vaccinated voluntarily about 7,000 of those 5 through 11-year-olds. From November until March 1st or 2nd is when we'll still be offering that through the Department of Health. The Department of Health is providing that up until that point, the first shot as well as the second shot. We're also providing COVID testing. Our nurses in schools are still doing COVID testing on site. And we've also provided our staff with home COVID tests in the event. So we're still trying to do everything except for taking that mask off and following the governor's orders to allow parents to allow them to return to school if they have been in close contact.
Are you all offering boosters?
We are right now, right now because of there's so many students 5 to 11, the Department of Health ran into, but no, we're not. We're just doing 5 to 11-year-olds, and then we'll start back with those older than 11.
Okay. Thank you. John James, I saw your hand up a little while. I forgot about you. I'm sorry.
No, not a problem. I think I raised my hand in regards to the question, are there any other misdemeanor offenses that would warrant a civil citation that wouldn't receive one? And I know we were focusing on battery, but we had two that come down the pipe, kids with no prior arrest. However, they were charged with possession of a firearm by a minor, which is, on all accounts, a misdemeanor offense. But it is against I guess what we agreed to is the language in the, I don't know if I want to say the agreement that we drafted, the agreement that was drafted. I want to say the agreement that was drafted by all parties, all stakeholders.
By the state attorney's office, yes. Okay.
That agreement, because there were two kids that definitely would have benefited from not even if not a civil citation, but a diversionary type program. But that is another offense. I just wanted to alert you to the fact that is a misdemeanor offense that will not receive a civil citation.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay. And so Mr. Obell. Okay, well, somebody is just sharing all of their business. So I think that's Dr. Watson. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
Dr.
that was not.
What did I do? What did I do?
Hearing all the noise.
We could hear your conversation on the speakerphone.
I
Now
thought
you
it was
muted.
on mute. I'm
It
sorry.
was.
Okay.
Okay,
We know what you want for Christmas now.
mute button.
I have a birthday Saturday first. So let me get past my birthday first.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Doc, can I get you this big old hurricane sign to put on your front yard? Is that possible?
Rude.
I will show you the
Rude.
hurricane sign that is in my office. When I lost the bet one year and I had to wear the shirt to work, that I sent you the picture, and then they made something for me to hang up in my office. Be quiet, Cassandra.
And too, you too, Cassandra. Okay.
I took 2 minutes off my time. So
You did. Community-based connection has a newer program. Tell me.
So, y'all, I just want to take the opportunity. Thank you, Madam Chair, and everybody on this board. As we continue to serve as your partner organization, oftentimes we're on here. The conversation we're having is to talk about the impact, and so how do we provide more solution-oriented opportunities? And so, for many of those who are not very familiar with CBCI, community-based connection, our mission have always been to expand available options for helping children to be socially and academically successful, despite the many challenges they face and regardless of the many negative influence around them. And so this year, our challenge had been to launch our new mental health support. And so when the Broward County Human Service Department came out with a grant focused on juvenile justice population, it kind of took me back to diversion aspect of things. But I want to be clear that this is a very unique opportunity for an agency like us that's really grassrooted in the community. And I want to publicly thank Cassandra. I know I did it behind closed door, but thank you, Cassandra, for being one of the community partners to write us a letter of support. And I just want to make y'all realize this is the unique opportunity that one, we become one of the mental health agency, because we also just got approved to be ACA certified as well. But two, this program is a mental health counselor services where we get to focus on misdemeanors and felonies. And so you may ask, who can refer to us? Promise program can refer to us, public defender office can refer to us, state attorney office, Department of Juvenile Justice, Broward County School, and the community by large. Who can we actually serve? What's the age range? 9 to 22. We do have a new clinical director, Dr. Elizabeth, that just started with us, who have in her early years had experience working with the Promise students as an intern, but she is now a new clinical director. What services can you expect us to provide? Family counseling, group counseling, individual counseling, life coach, psychosocial evaluation, both licensed and master level, and as well as comprehensive intake assessment. And we also seek to provide financial support to those by and large in the community. So again, this is a very rare and unique opportunity for us to tap into and to get it first time out the gate with Broward County Human Service Department. And so we're excited about this opportunity. I know I took some time last time touching base on this, but thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me the opportunity to, one, serve on the board along with the rest of my colleagues, but two, supporting this initiative as well, as we knew that was part of one of our creative plan to do from a mental health standpoint, because we need to be very culturalistic about how we provide services in our community and realizing that those with lived experience are in the best position to serve the community when they have these kind of forms in front of them. Oh, also one of the other folks that can also refer is the judges. Judges are able to refer to this program as well. So I just want to present that out there, and I'm more than happy to take any questions regarding it.
Any questions? Okay,
Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
contact
I just ask
information in the
that,
chat.
yeah, if Mr. Obell can just send out the program information just to be shared out with the larger teams.
Most definitely, will do.
And put your information in the chat too. That would be great.
Okay.
All right. Speaking of grants and opportunities, Tamika.
Okay, hello again. I just wanted to take this opportunity to advise this board that the Broward County Justice Services will be seeking the W.E.B. Du Bois Racial Equity Grant this year. And the primary purpose of that grant is to look at systems and to improve them, to identify inequities based on race and other things, to identify them and see what can be done to remedy them. I'm sorry, I can't speak. Our primary focus for this particular submission will be to focus on Broward County's pre-arrest program, which, as you all know, is our civil citation program. We've already obtained 3 researchers who are independent from Broward County. Two of them are from Barry University, and one of them, many of you may know, William Jackson will be working with us on this research grant. He was previously with the Urban League, and he's pursuing his doctorate degree at FIU. So he'll be coming on board. Many of you will receive an email from me because we will be requesting letters of support. Some of the work that the researchers will be doing will be interviewing law enforcement and other stakeholders to kind of figure out what attitudes or mindsets or trends that they see and what goes into their decision to issue or not issue civil citation. So we're very excited about this grant. Again, it's research-based, and there's also a mentoring component. Well, there will be other researchers, graduate level students from across the county who will also come on and be trained to be researchers to do some of this work. So we're very excited about it.
Okay. Mr. Obel, there is a question in the chat from Jackie Lashbrook. She wants you to send information about the program to her. She's included her email address.
Okay, I'm not seeing Jackie's email address on my thing, so I'm not sure what's going on with her.
I will send it. It's on the Q&A, not the chat.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
I'll be sure to send it up.
All right. Cassandra Evans, Angel Tree Book Drive. I heard on the street that it was so successful last year, even though the Deltas showed y'all up. But you know, that's what the street committee said. I didn't say it. The street said it. That they want to do it again. Yeah.
I don't have my tally sheet in front of me, but I don't believe that statement is completely accurate, Madam Chair. But
well, I was reminded of it when I saw Dr. Wanza's sweater on her chair that the Deltas had showed y'all up.
No. The AKA brought books in by the boatloads. That's all I'm going to say. But we actually had another community provider, I think, brought like 300 or 400. So that provider actually did a phenomenal job. But yes, the department is once again doing the Angel Tree Book Drive, which provides books to children in the detention facility as well as to our residential facilities. And so once again, we're asking that you bring age-appropriate, child-appropriate books to the drop-off point. Our single point drop-off point will be at the Jack, and that's because it's open 24/7. It allows you just to drop it off when possible. And it's from now. We haven't been given an end date, but if we can get it from now to the end of the end of the calendar year, then that would be helpful. I'm going to really stress age-appropriate, gently used books. This is not where you bring your children's old coloring books that you're just trying to get out the house. It's not where you bring your evening reading to drop off for children to read, right? Because what we had to do in our actuality, we had to screen some of the books out for them to be, to ensure that we were given the appropriate books and they were still in good condition. So if you find it in your heart or your organization wants to contribute, please bring them there. If you have a box, that will be helpful. Helps us box them up and get them over to the detention facility.
Last year, y'all had a flyer. Do you have a flyer as well this year?
I did see a notice go out, Madam Chair. I'm not sure the flyer was attached, but yes, it was because it had the locations on it. I will send that to you.
Okay, we'll do that as well. Thank you. The missed opportunities report. I didn't receive one via email. I know you said DJJ didn't have one last month. What is the story this month?
It is when I looked earlier this morning, Tamika and I were speaking, it's for the partial month. We get 2 reports, a full month and a partial month. So the full month report had not been received as of this morning, but I just checked my emails and it's just come in this afternoon. So I will be sending that out too.
Okay, can you read it to us now, please?
Let me see, let me go to that. 1 second, let me get to that side of the system. If you want to get the other information, Madam Chair, I will pull this up for you. I know, I think BSO, we normally report out on some few other things. Give me a second.
Okay. Let us do COVID-19 in the jails. Colonel Holmes.
All right. Right now in the jails, we have, believe it or not, 0 positive cases.
Okay.
So we've been very fortunate. The last several days we've checked, and I got a report today, and it was 0 positive cases. Internally within our agency, we have 17 positive cases of employees, which is fairly low compared to the past. So we're heading in the right direction, but 0 positive for inmates is huge.
Excellent. Population?
But for juveniles right now, we have a total of 11. We have 8 males, 3 females. We have 10 at the Paul Ryan facility. We have 1 at the North Broward facility. All the juveniles have access to mental health services, and all of them are in school. 0 juveniles have tested positive for COVID-19, which is another plus.
Excellent. COVID-19, any information you could share at the detention center, population or anything, Chief Evans?
Yes, ma'am. Currently there are 43 youth in secure detention, 39 male, 4 female, and the facility is not under quarantine status. As far as the JAC is concerned, for the month of November, they processed 146 youth.
Wow. Is that up? Is that standard?
Relatively low.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. With most of those children, 678 going to secure detention and the remaining being released out into the community. Over 50 of them were released out to the community. So still have mix of, serious clientele coming through and those who are still able to be straight released.
Okay.
Okay. So, Madam Chair, I have the report. So this is not in the perfect format because it's in the spreadsheet. And like I said, it came in while I was on the call. What I have on the missed opportunities report is a total of 18 youth in total. But of those, it looks as if the bulk of them, let me tell you how many, 15 were for what looks to be domestic violence, battery, touch, or strike, and the other 2, so that's 15, so that leaves 3. One is for a misdemeanor sex offense, 1 is for a misdemeanor weapon firearm offense, and 1 is for a misdemeanor obstruction of justice offense.
Obstruction of justice.
Mm-hmm.
What agency?
Obstruction of justice is, I believe it's the one that Major London spoke to, Fort Lauderdale Police Department. And then the misdemeanor weapons offense is Sunrise, and then the misdemeanor sex offense is Hollywood.
So did the obstruction get diversion that you know of, Gloria, off the top of your head?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I can tell you, there's no way that they didn't, because that is the exact protocol. That should not be slipping through a crack. So I can check on that when I get, when Cassandra sends that report out. I do go through those cases to make sure, that they shouldn't have. I'm even going through them to the extent that I can while we're in sort of this purgatory about how to get certain cases to civil citation that should have gone to civil citation. Tamika and I and Cassandra, and we just had a meeting this morning. I don't know if you want to hear this now, Madam Chair, but
I do.
Okay, so this morning I had a meeting, Harold, State Attorney Harold Pryor, myself, Gina Falk, and the clerk's office. You know, I think we spoke at the last CAB meeting. I had expressed that the one obstacle or roadblock that we were still trying to work out is this idea that once the youth has passed through, and Cassandra was very good about really explaining why this happens and we can't undo it, but once they pass through the jack and they have been put into custody through, you know, for purposes of tracking them with a case number or what have you at the jack, I have to figure out how to get out of that in order to get them over to Tamika to the program. We are in the midst of working on something with the clerk's office. We're hoping that an amendment to the administrative order in which the clerk's office is already engaged with us in terms of cooperation on this. We're hoping that an amendment to that will give them the mechanism to utilize in their office to sort of undo that. Because it's like trying to get rid of I think Colonel Holmes could attest this, or any law enforcement officer, you can't undo a traffic ticket. So we're trying to undo sort of that, you know, that same scenario. So the clerk's office needs authority for that. I'm going to be working on that along with our executive director in our office and present it to the clerks, and their legal counsel will then take it from there. That just gives you an idea of what we're trying to do. That's where I see the biggest roadblock for missed opportunity is when an officer intentionally or unintentionally, intentionally meaning that they did not want to give the civil citation, but my office wants to provide it, or you know, unintentionally does not give an eligible youth civil citation. We need to have a workaround for that. That's what we're working on. So I guess what I'm trying to say to your question about the missed opportunity that Cassandra is speaking to, I still go and look at those. And if I think I can do something before it even has to go to diversion, I'm working with my program director, Dennis Alsbury, on that. But if I can't, then that youth is definitely diverted as in, you know, the traditional sense. Hopefully that clarifies.
And so, Colonel, you have staff ready to cross-train staff ready to go for next month?
Yes, for January.
Okay.
Yeah, over at the Jack. So we're all squared away on that.
So how close are you and Chief Evans on when a civil citation eligible child arrives at the Jack, where to prevent them from coming into the door, which essentially, based on what Ms. Evans has shown us, will kind of eliminate their eligibility. So how close are you to putting your policy in place so that the youth could be engaged before they actually enter the building or enter the Sally Port there?
You referring to the sheriff's office first?
I'm strictly BSO.
Okay, strictly BSO. You know, our policy basically states that, you know, we're required to check with the state's attorney's office to make sure that we're following our protocol, and they agree with the issuance of the citation. And like I stated before, if our deputy decides to, for whatever reason, has to leave, and they've gone back to their district, and it was determined somehow that it slipped through the cracks, then we'll have a person on hand that can do it, that's cross-certified.
Chief Evans, do you know what I mean? Like yeah, can you explain what we're talking about?
We're gonna have to work out, my thought would be we're gonna have to catch them at the Sally Port. So we're gonna have to work out that stop, because once they're in the building and we start pushing data across, then that's where it's gonna be. So I think the policy part will work. Procedurally, what would the cross-trained deputy say? Okay, before admitting, is this child eligible? They say yes. Let me come outside, blah, blah, blah. And we kind of do it that way. We really don't want a civil citation youth to ever enter the building. So we'll, Colonel Holmes and I we're in December. We'll probably see each other. I know next week, but next meeting. But we'll get something in place to be ready to go for the beginning of the year.
Okay, so the training, and then has to be training for the new staff as well. So you all will work that out. So when the new cross-trained staff will automatically know how that works. And then once you get that running smoothly, then we'll work on other entities like Fort Lauderdale on that space.
We're already on board. It doesn't require anything other than BSO to do what they're going to do in the Salad Port.
Okay, these meetings are recorded. Don't play.
I'm fully aware.
Thank you. Okay. That's all I have. Is there anything anything for the good of the order that we need to cover? Any programs? I know that there is I think Carter Park has a light up the park. I think they're going to be doing toys and other activities and resources for families as well. Mr. Lagon?
Yes, just wanted to emphasize the date for the letters for the Angel Tree books is January 10th.
Okay.
That's the due date for that, and I forwarded the flyer over to you for Ms. Cassandra, and also we're anticipating your arrival of your comprehensive report and your annual report, so we can get those filled in. What we're doing, we are reviewing those information. We're going to have one big collaborative meeting so that we can share what information you all are sharing in your circles and concerns. So if there's some way we can step in and help out, we're going to try our best to do so. And then if there's any events that are going on with any provider that's in your area, please feel free. Every Friday or Thursday, send me an email. It can be either you, Chair Ellison, or any one of the providers on the call to let me know what's going on, because I give an update every Monday and Tuesday to our leadership here and the secretary. So we want to know if there's something going on, share it with us so I can make sure I get that information to them in a timely fashion. And I don't know if you're all aware, we do have a new DJJ secretary. So that's on forward going, and CAP chair call. We're going to have a presenter from the Henry White Mental Health Foundation. They're one of Prevention's new provider that covers several circuits, and they're looking to do other business elsewhere. So we're going to bring them on the CAP call meeting Monday to do a little small presentation, let you all know what's going on with them, for those of you who would like to come on. And then I just want to let you know the providers that are in your area: Mount Bethel, Human Resources. You know, we have the statewide providers, Big Brothers Big Sisters, Florida Youth Challenge Academy, Florida Network, Youth and Family Services PACE Center, and Florida Alliance for Boys and Girls. All those are DJJ prevention providers that we use throughout the state. So, and then again, I also forward you an email in reference to the membership. And also, would you please send me? I need to get a list, because we're updating our system, and I don't have a list of your members, so we can put it in the file for your circuit, so I can have it for leadership here.
Okay. Colonel Holmes.
Yes, Madam Chair. Just tying into what I think Tamika and Mr. Obel stated earlier as it relates to mental health. One of the things that we're doing at BSO, myself and the undersheriff, we're going around to all the roll calls to reiterate to our deputies about assessing situations that are related to mental health. Not to go 0 to 100 real quick and want to put handcuffs on people. Step back, assess, slow down, take a deep breath, because post-pandemic, it has affected a lot of people in a negative manner, and we can't overlook children, how it affected children. So hopefully, with us going around to roll calls, reminding our deputies, and our training division has instituted numerous mental health classes for our deputies to identify people in mental health crisis. Hopefully this will help eliminate unnecessary arrests.
And I want to say, Colonel, when I asked the sheriff to give me a decision-making staff member that had juice, that was not gonna have to ask, all these people before he made a decision. That was assigning you has certainly been helpful. You have delivered on everything we have asked you to do, and we are extremely appreciative on behalf of all of the youth and this board and the stakeholders of Broward County. So we want to certainly thank you and BSO for doing exactly what you said you were going to do. So that's very appreciative. Thank you.
Thank you. We're not going to stop. We're going to continue on.
We appreciate you. Chief Evans.
Yes, Madam Chair. In 2022, are we going to continue in a virtual format, or
We are going to vote next month, and it'll be the will of the body.
Okay.
Is there anyone else? Anything you want to share? Mr. Lagana, if you will put your email in the chat real quick, that would be helpful. And is your hand raised again, Chief Evans? Okay. And with that, as soon as he finishes, he's holding us up, y'all, not me. We will send that out. And so we want to say thank you to everyone. Please have a safe holiday. Wear your mask, because Florida has been confirmed for the new variant, and Delta is still not being very kind to us and our folk. We want to certainly keep, Dr. Osgood's father in our prayers, and we will certainly share our thoughts and prayers to Dr. Osgood when I talk to her a little bit later this evening. And with that, if all hearts and minds are clear, meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a good holiday, everyone.
Holiday.
Have a good one.
Be safe.
Thank you.
Holidays.
Bye-bye.